No, I feel like it's not gonna get better. All right, perfect. All right, good evening, everyone. This is the State Licenses and Permits Committee of Community Board 5. I'm Seth Borden, your committee chair. And before we get started, we will go around the room so that committee members can introduce themselves.
I'm Yoden Thondon. I'm vice chair of SLAP.
Melissa Stewart.
Andrea Ng, a member.
Perfect. All right, so in the spirit of ongoing holidays, we have a very short meeting tonight with three brief items, only one of which is a voting item. So the first one is new business. So is there anyone attending, including members of the public, that has any business before the committee other than the items on the agenda? All right, perfect. So the two remaining items are 59 West 21st Street, doing business as Supper Club. And then we have Lincoln Wrestlers bill on expanding access to roadway and sidewalk cafes. So our first item is a request by Do Supper Club for an all-night permit for New Year's Eve. So we haven't seen these before, so I'll start with like a short summary of the application and then the question at hand. And then afterwards we'll have a Q&A session. I don't think we'll need too much time there. And then I'll open the floor to the public if anybody has questions. And then during business session, which we'll have afterwards, the committee will discuss the topic. There will be a motion, and then we'll take a vote. So we don't have quorum tonight, as everybody knows, but the vote of this committee will I'll take it to executive committee, and we'll make a decision there, which will then take that to the full board of CB5. Before we get started on that, I noticed there is one individual online. I just wanted to reiterate that if you're here to leave a comment for either Taj or Baza. Those two items have actually been shifted to January 20th, our next meeting. So if you do want to make a comment on those, please do attend that meeting. Otherwise, please do feel free to stay on for the other items. All right, so as I said, I'll start with a summary of this. This all-night application. So it's an application for an all-night permit for an existing establishment. So this is due, it's a nightclub whose hours are 11 p.m. Tuesday through Wednesday and 4 a.m. Thursday through Saturday. So it is a full nightclub. It's located on 21st Street between 5th and 6th Avenues. So it does fall within our restricted licensing area, which, as you all know, generally comes with time restrictions and other capacity restrictions. So we have two goals tonight. The first is to align on a general process for these, which Yoden and I have sort of talked about ourselves. We wanted to get more input on that. And then the second piece is to decide what to do about this specific application. So on the process, for all-night permits, the proposal from Yoden and I is as follows. So as a part of our usual review process and the chair meetings that we have, Yoden and I will flag certain applications where, like this one, there's more of a potential for conflict with nearby residences. So examples include, being in the RLA or the BCRLA, the restricted areas we have. So we'll definitely flag those items, or if it's primarily residential. But if you want to have an all-night party in Rockefeller Center, that's not as much of a concern. So usually at this point, Yoden and I would send the questionnaire to the applicant and then start a due diligence with one of the members. But in this case, we have a short time frame to comment, and these are very limited permits. It's just the night of New Year's Eve. And so our proposal is that instead of having one of you go through a diligence, we would just put up postings, as Yoden has done in this case. And then if there's feedback, we'll take it to committee and make a decision at the committee rather than going through the diligence process. And then we'll make a decision up to including denial. And then if there's no feedback, we'll likely make no comment unless there's extenuating circumstances. So where would that leave us on this application? So in this specific instance, we didn't hear feedback from the public, right? That's good to hear. So our plan is to make no comment on this, but I did want to sort of open the floor on that and on the process. But if there had been feedback, we would have had applicants come to the meeting alongside community members to sort of hash it out and make a decision. So with that, I'll open it up for, let's do questions from the public first. Seeing none, we'll move to questions from the committee. any questions on the process or this application?
Is there a time limit as to how many days in advance they have to give notice?
There is,
It's 45 days.
Do
They
they
have
meet
to-
that 45 days?
that's right.
They have to, I think, I think they have to inform SLA 45 days in advance of the proposed night. And then it
That's
comes to Josh and us, yeah.
Yeah,
Should that be extended out if it's due to holiday? Maybe for
this leaves, um, anybody can weigh in on this, but in my mind, it leaves enough time for us to do this process that we've outlined. And I don't think that even if we had more time, I don't think we'd want to go too in depth on these types of applications. Where, because we could, if we find one that there's a lot of opposition for the all-night permit for a specific case, we could recommend deny on that case without.
I mean,
deliberating
this
too
is
much.
the first one that we haven't had many and they're
No.
usually, I don't think we've ever gotten one that's not for New Year's Eve.
Yes, that's right. I think they have to be. I think it's a specific, correct me
not
if
for
I'm wrong, but
Halloween, not for Pride, not for
We
any of the
haven't
other.
seen
no, I think it's actually in the law just for this. Like this type of permit is a very specific thing for New Year's Eve. And it technically allows service of alcohol until like 8 a.m. the next day. So it's just that one night. Hey, how's it going? Okay, so any other comments on questions on the process? And then any comments on the process? Yeah.
I think this is great. Thank you for thinking this through. I think there's space to, like, if we get feedback and we hear things after, we can iterate on the process, but I think this is great.
Perfect. All right,
I have a comment.
yeah.
Just
absolutely.
something that we should be maybe considering is like having more than one all-night permit on a block, or should we be thinking of a limit? Because there is this concentration of clubs in certain areas and,
Additional levels of security,
yeah,
guards on the street,
yeah.
more so than just a regular short-term event.
That's interesting. So, yeah, we had talked about doing limitations, and I think the way that would work logistically is like it would basically go in the order of applications received. So we would get one that would count as one on that block, and then and I think we talked about, actually, I'm glad you brought this up. I think we talked about it being only on controversial blocks we would track it, right? So we wouldn't mind if there were two on like right next to Rockefeller Center, to my earlier point, but if there were two on 21st Street, for example, we might actually start to really pay attention to that. So how does everybody feel about that? Like setting not a hard limit maybe, but like a extra scrutiny as new
So
applications
many
come in.
foot rule, like you have so many foot from a church, so many.
Yeah, does anybody have that on mind? Just wanna make sure, like, or I guess, show of hands, who would support a limit of some kind on a street where there's like potential for more conflict, I guess?
I guess the question would be, is this a limit, or like if we hit a certain number, we would then bring it for discussion?
The latter more, and I think it would just weigh more against the application, the new applications that come in, so if we have the first one that's on the block, I think it would receive less scrutiny than like the second or third.
And
Essentially.
I think it also depends on the venue size and. Yeah,
Yeah, that's true also.
If it was like a 400 capacity venue.
Yeah.
Could you ticket the number of people who are out on the street? Can they make sure that they're not gonna be lines? And is it one admittance, or is it every hour from midnight to 8 where groups are coming in, cars are parking up? I think you'd have to really look at how the event through the night was going to play out.
Mhm. So it sounds like, okay, so I think I can move us into business session, which is like very, given the size of this session, it's not as serious, but we now it's only committee members will just have a discussion and finalize it. I think it sounds like we're all aligned on the policy that we proposed, that Yoda and I proposed, with the addition of soft limitation on applications on controversial blocks. Does somebody want to make that motion?
motion?
Yeah.
Do I have to restate it?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
I make a motion for this process, with additional scrutiny beyond a single applicant in those restricted areas that we've discussed.
Perfect. And actually, if we could add also to that, the approval of this one, or no comment on this one, so,
And no comment. This application.
perfect.
Second.
Thank you. All right, with that, good, and if we could take that to a vote, that'd be perfect.
Sure, vote. Okay, Seth,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Lev,
Yes.
Andrea,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
and me, yes, okay. Great, 6 votes in favor.
Perfect. All right, with that, our last item, this is gonna be the shortest meeting ever, will not be a resolution, but it's something that I wanted to put on everybody's radar. So Councilmember Lincoln Ressler has introduced a bill, expanding access to roadway and sidewalk cafes. And so the main provisions of the bill, I'll go over quickly, are the most important is that it removes this seasonal requirement for roadway cafes, so it'll allow them to operate all year. And then other factors that are interesting are it allows grocery stores to apply for cafes, streamlines the process, increases the allowable footprint. You can move into adjacent businesses areas if they consent. And then the last piece is that they can be closer to intersections, so it's 8 feet away from an intersection instead of 20 feet, which is the current restriction. So those are the broad features of the proposal. And Transportation Committee, this is next Monday, I think, is taking up this coming Monday, is taking up the item. So we'd like to explore weighing in as it relates to quality of life for establishments with liquor licenses that apply for roadway cafes. And so we wanted tonight to, just inform everyone that this is coming. But also to ask who might be interested in taking a look into this further and potentially coming to the next meeting with a proposal as to maybe a letter we might write or a similar action like that. I don't think it would be more formal than a letter, but probably just that. But we could also respond to what transportation does and see what makes the most sense. So with that, I'll stop there. I'll ask for comments from the public first, if there's anything. Or
So if you have a restriction that SLA only goes to 11, for whatever reasons,
Yeah,
and the roadsides are allowed to stay open to midnight, there's a conflict there. Or do they just stay open, but they can't serve alcohol in the shed past 11 based upon your existing restrictions on the restaurant?
interesting. So basically, there's not a part of the city where we would require that they close by 11, but we do in some cases negotiate with applicants to have them stop serving alcohol earlier because of the size of the or size of the scope of the establishment. So in those cases, we would have them sign an affidavit to say we will stop serving alcohol outside at such and such a time if it's a more sensitive area.
And I think as it relates to 8 foot versus 20 foot from the intersection, if you have outside structures on all 4 corners of an intersection and you have bike lanes, those become blind spots for people turning left, right. And if you're talking about inclement weather and there's snow piles between this, I think you really do need to keep the intersections free and clear. There are no cars that are parked on the intersections within a certain feet as of those. I think it becomes a real big concern.
Interesting. No, it's, thank you. That's definitely something we can, incorporate into the process that we do the next month. So there's no, formal business session for this item, but we can still go through, the same process. So we'll do, questions from committee next. Anybody with any questions on the law or the next steps?
I
Yeah.
have one, is the 8 feet rule for the sheds that are truly like kind of on the street, or is it for the ones that are truly on the sidewalk?
That's a good question. I believe it's the ones on the street. Is that right? No,
Okay.
to be honest. Yeah.
Okay, That's good to know, just because I agree with what you're saying. I do think 8 feet does feel a little questionable, honestly, even though I'm very pro outdoor dining in the sheds all year round. But
Yeah,
I just didn't know if it applied to like the sidewalk cafes that are truly on the sidewalk or not, but.
that's a great question. Any other questions on this? Yeah,
Question just on kind of the goal of what we're gonna come to the next meeting with, is this like proposed perspective that we might have based on like what we've heard from the public in the past? In terms of input, and then also like what our perspective might be to some of these changes.
exactly. Yeah, it's just sort of ideally come. I know this is the holidays intervening, so it'll slow things down a bit, but ideally there would be some both like seeing what happens with transportation, incorporating that, and then if there's some way to get community input, you know, that maybe through um organizations that we were able to be in touch with, community organizations. That might be a way to get input. And then coming to the meeting with sort of maybe a short list of things to put into a letter. And that way, at the committee, we could talk about whether we agree with those things and then agree to write the letter. It's a great question.
And I have one more thing. You
Oh, yeah.
started talking about expanding to the left and to the right of different buildings. Can you put a size restriction? Could this be this 200-foot structure on the entire block?
It's a good question. I think that there are restrictions on that, but I'm not certain
I mean,
what
there
the
are certain
limit is.
buildings that have 100 feet on the block. And I think these structures should be limited in size regardless of how big the building is, not just in front of the building.
There are limitations. I believe, from what I know, and I'd have to check this to be sure, but I believe that there are requirements for breaks in the structure. So I think there may not be a limit on
The whole block.
the
meaning-
block, but it's basically like you can't have one long thing. It would have to be passable and
But
every
I
so
think
often.
even having little intersections, if someone, emergency medical comes through, they need places for structures to come through, but
They're required to have like,
break up in the spots.
to have one of the walls at least partially removable, for ADA compliance, but that also translates over to emergency services.
But maybe limit the number of sheds per block.
Hmm.
Like,
Gotcha. That's helpful. That was all helpful. I just getting, sort of input on what might be concerns.
in the East Village, you have blocks during those COVID that had the entire block on both sides,
Mhm.
and it becomes a bit of a issue for the community and the noise.
Yeah. Perfect. So I think with that, we can go to comments from the committee, if there are any comments.
I think the thing I would just say is, I hear you on the limits, because my old building was like on this 22nd Street stretch, it gets so loud and things like that.
Yeah.
But maybe instead of like hard and fast number limits, it's kind of what we were saying for that other thing where it's like you take into consideration
Mhm.
based on what's already there, who's already applied, things like that. Cause I feel like every street's different and every restaurant's different and, certain streets like, yeah, it's super noisy, you don't want a ton, and others, it's a different situation.
Mhm. That makes sense. That makes sense. Perfect. Any other comments before we do a final ask for volunteers?
Are we waiting for them to write the letter first and then we're adding on to transportation? Is that-
Transportation will just in the course of things make a decision on what they want to do first, likely, unless they can't get enough people. I assume they're gonna make a decision of some kind.
They're gonna be formulating their thoughts on the policy, but the bill is currently, it's been filed, but we're approaching the end of the year. But we expect it to be brought up again in the new year, so we want to gather our opinions now.
So our last piece is there anybody who would like to volunteer to look into this further? And it doesn't have to be a binding thing because I haven't reached out to Samir yet, but he's on the transportation committee. So we'll likely have him at least involved, hopefully, if he agrees. But wanted to see if there's anybody else who is interested, particularly if you're on transportation. I'm not sure who is or not, but. And no pressure now. You could also email me later, me and Yoden and Josh, to indicate interest as well.
I'm not on transportation, but I'm happy to help out with this.
Thank you. That'd be great.
I can also help as well from an tech.
Oh, perfect.
For the
No, that's
media
great.
part, like reaching out to people, there is an organization that I know has collected like a lot of signatures on this already around the city. Is that what you mean when you said that? Like reach out to,
Oh, on this, bill?
on like people wanting sidewalk sheds year round and wanting outdoor
Oh.
dining expanded year round?
Actually, no, but that would be also good to reach out to, but we're just in contact with, like, bids and other, and like the 21st Street. What's it called? The 21st
Block
Street
Association.
Block Association, yeah. So different organizations like that
Mm.
have an opinion one way or another, but what you just mentioned, that would be good as well, to get sort of all the perspectives we can get. All right, perfect. Well, thank you both. Yeah, so we'll start a thread afterwards. And I'll try to include Samir as well because he could help out. All right, with that, any other new business? We did new business, but now that everybody's here, any other new business? Okay, with that, we will adjourn the shortest meeting